Oh, you can take it away. Patrick D. McCoy is a PR specialist and an arts journalist in the DC area. And I love Patrick because he's a singer, he's an organist, and he works with the church, and he is an enthusiast on Black opera. He's a very, very, very knowledgeable person, and he is a pioneer in Black opera journalism. And so I'm so glad to have him here.
Thank you so much. And now I'm going to take a moment to introduce the panelists. Raehann Bryce-Davis, hailed by the New York Times as a striking mezzo-soprano and by the San Francisco Chronicle for her electrifying sense of fearlessness, Raehann Bryce-Davis opened the 2019-20 season singing Verdi's Requiem with conductor Kent Nagato and the Orchestra Symphonique de Montreal at the Olympic Stadium. Ms. Bryce-Davis is a 2018 recipient of the prestigious George London Award, the 2017 First Place and Audience Prize winner of the Concorso Lirico Internacional di Portofino competition, chaired by Dominic Meyer, winner of the 2016 Richard F. Gold Career Grant, winner of the 2015-19 International Hilda Cadet competition at the Music Fair in Vienna, the 2015 Metropolitan Opera Council auditions in Pittsburgh, and the 2015 Sedat Garay Gutsen Garel International Voice Competition in Istanbul. She holds a Master of Music and Professional Studies certificate from the Manhattan School of Music and Bachelor of Music from the University of Texas at Arlington. Raehann Bryce-Davis. Makeda Hampton. Makeda Hampton, on a personal note, I know her for our love for Miss Battle. Makeda Hampton is a native of Newcastle, Delaware. She recently performed in the new production of Porgy Best at the Metropolitan Opera for the 2019-2020 season. Makeda has studied and performed across the United States and Europe, including the American Institute of Musical Studies in Graz, Austria, Torellon Opera Festival in Morocco, Austria, Hawaii Performing Arts Festival, Songfest in Los Angeles, New Jersey State Opera, and the University of Kentucky Opera Theater. Makeda is currently a candidate for the Doctorate of Musical Arts degree at the University of Kentucky, where she was a Lyman T. Johnson Graduate Fellow from 2016 to 2019. She earned a Master of Music in Voice Performance and Pedagogy from Westminster Choir College in Princeton, New Jersey, and a Bachelor of Music in Voice Performance and Pedagogy from Oakwood University in Huntsville, Alabama. Makeda Hampton. Meroë Khalia Adeeb. Meroë realized while pursuing a sales and marketing degree at Tuskegee University, that wouldn't sustain her love for performing after graduation. Her path led her to Louisiana State University, where she began classical training and continued on at Binghamton University in New York for her master's degree. Through the years, she has enjoyed performing some of the most important soprano roles in the operatic repertoire. Two of her favorite roles thus far have been Violetta in La Traviata and Mimi in La Boheme, both performed under the baton of Maestro Vallard Infinte at the Tri-Cities Opera. Another favorite has been singing the role of Clara in Poor Again Best under the baton of Maestro John Demain and the direction of Francesca Zambello at the Glimmerglass Festival. Some of the roles that Ms. Adeeb has performed include Nanetta in Falstaff, Donna Evira in Don Giovanni, Gilda in Rigoletto, and Bart II in Ben Moore's opera Odessa. Oh, I'm sorry, Odyssey. Oh my goodness. Welcome, Meroë. Briana Hunter has been hailed by Opera News as a mesmerizing mezzo-soprano with a fiery theatrical presence and dynamic vocalism. Ms. Hunter began her 2019-2020 season in performance of Augusta Reed's Thomas Sweet, Potato Kicks the Sun with the Santa Fe Opera. Following her acclaimed performances creating the role of Mother in Janine Tesori's Blue at the Glimmerglass Festival, she reprises the role this spring, or was to reprise it this spring before COVID, at the Washington National Opera. A graduate of the Geraldine Young Artist Program, she returned to the Opera Theater of St. Louis, or was supposed to have made for the role of debut of Orvalinsky in Die Fledermaus. Ms. Hunter is a Lot Lehman competition finalist and a winner of the Lisa Minnette Award, and the accolades go on and on and on. She currently resides in New York City, Miss Briana Hunter. And finally, Christine Lyons has been hailed as a true virtuosa by Broadway World, Exclaimed a revelation by Gay City News and praised for her potent soprano by Opera magazine. Her 2019-20 season would have begun with Puccini's Madama Butterfly, with Baltimore Concert Opera, Leonora, and Verdi's Il Trovatore, a performance at the National Portrait Gallery, and a few others. She is the grand prize winner of the Mary Truman Art Song Vocal Competition and has garnered top awards from the Gerda Lister Foundation, Vocal Arts DC, Art Song Competition, and so forth and so on. Her debut as Norma is nominated for the Outstanding Achievement in Opera Award from the 2020 St. Louis Theater Circle, as she was featured artist on WWFM Classical, celebrating our musical feature live radio program. Ms. Lyons is a graduate of the Peabody Conservatory and Carnegie Mellon University and completed further studies at the Mozarteum in Salzburg. Please welcome our panelists to this wonderful panel today. So you all, I am going to jump right in with one of the first questions. You know, with this technology, you have to almost rehearse and get this stuff together. We're going to do the best we can. What I'm going to do is I want to start off, how I would like to do this is I'm going to offer the first question to each of you. We'll have a whole round of this one question, and then the second round, I'll field a question and I'll let someone jump out there. If you feel like you can't answer it, I'll kind of nudge the conversation. But I'm going to start here. Now, most of us, I would say, your senior year of college, you know, being a voice major, so forth and so on, you're doing all of this stuff, and then it's just months before graduation. What advice would you wish you would have had in terms of pursuing a career professionally in opera straight out of college? So Christine, we'll start with you.
Okay, hi everyone. So honored to be on this panel with all of you guys. I would say senior year, Carnegie Mellon, looking back, I'm thinking there are a million different ways to go once you're in your fourth year of undergrad for a vocal performance degree. And the best advice I got, which I'd like to start with, was a teacher who very much empowered me, and I carry that with me to this day. I went to her office and said, I don't know what to do. I could do this, I could da, 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 da. And she said, what do you want to do? I answered the question and she said, do that, period. And that level of empowerment, I think, is not something that is granted every senior in college. So I would like everyone to have that sense of you have the control over what to do next. I will also say there's a huge emphasis in college and in the opera industry on following, and having seen someone do something that's like you in order to deem you successful enough to attempt that. And what I would say to especially Black women in opera is that just because you haven't seen anyone like you do it before doesn't mean that you can't do it. You don't have to rely on anyone telling you that you can or cannot. We know ourselves, and I wish I knew that when I was 21.
Wow, thank you. What about you, Raehann?
Well, I also had one of these moments that I was in a hallway and I grabbed one of my most trusted teachers and I was like, what do? I have this opportunity to go to a smaller school and not pay quite as much, or to go to Manhattan School of Music, which we all know is, you know, much more connected in the industry and things. And the advice she gave me was to get out of here. I was in Texas again. And she was like, you need to go somewhere in the Northeast and build your connections. And honestly, I think that is the most important thing as you're trying to build your career, is to build your connections as you're building your artistry. I chose to go to Manhattan School of Music, where I had a really fantastic education. A lot of people have very different experiences there, depending on who you are, who you get to work with while you're there. I was fortunate and got really great opportunities while I was there, but that's not the only way to skin the, what do they say, that, well, either way, that's not a proper saying. But it's not the only way to do things. I think now, had I gotten that experience, I advise young seniors to consider going to Europe for school. And that's not something that most people will tell you in America. We're very American centric, and we don't necessarily think of the big world outside of there. If you go to conservatory, for example, in Germany, in, let's say, Hamburg, and you go through the system, you're already getting to know the opera house there, getting to know people there. And while you're getting your education, you're building the connections directly. And more young singers there naturally go into the system and are working right after they graduate. They start at a smaller house and then they build their way up. So there's a much stronger connection over there between how many singers are educated and how many singers are working. There are just more jobs over there. So I think that would have been a really huge insight for me, whereas I wouldn't have amounted quite as many student loans. I don't regret the decision that I made because, again, I had a fantastic experience there. But there are other ways to do it where you still build your connections and your artistry and don't amass quite as many student loans. Still apply to the schools here in America, because if you get one of those scholarships, again, you get all of those benefits with a strong education, ideally, and also building the connections.
But Raehann, I'm glad you illuminated that point, because when you think of someone like Grace Bumbry and even Jesse Norman, a lot of that study and acclaim really happened in Europe, and then they came back here. So I'm glad you really pointed it out. Meroë, the special Maryland connection.
Hey!
So what's your take on it?
Well, as you all heard briefly, I have a sales and marketing degree before I started studying music traditionally. So my path is different than what I wanted, but my idea was to get the heck out of school as soon as possible because I was tired. So what I did get at LSU was a lot of great vocal training. What I lacked, because I was only there 3 years for my second bachelor's, was role experience. And, you know, I was competing against other undergrads that had a lot more experience than me, master's students and PhD students. So I was a little fish in a big pond. So actually one of the grad students advised me to go to a grad school that doesn't have a PhD program. You will be a master's student. Therefore, you have a much better chance of getting roles. So that's what I ended up doing, a small program on the East Coast so I could drive and do all my auditions in New York City without having that New York rent, okay? And I got a lot of experience and connections like Raehann was talking about. I made most of my connections through competitions. And so although I never won first place in a competition, I sang for a lot of important people. In those competitions, the judges and audience members are often people who are looking to hire. Maybe not this season, maybe next season. I had an entire season of opera gigs that I only auditioned for one of the jobs. All of the other roles came from people who I worked with before, who heard me or judged me in a competition. And because I was able to sing for people regularly by competing regularly on the East Coast, that really put my voice in front of people's ears that were decision makers, and that really helped. So I would say it really depends on what you need, but location has a lot to do with it. If you're in a part of the country that has a lot of competitions going on, a lot of small gigs going on, you're putting yourself in front of more people, and therefore you're increasing your hireability.
Thank you so much. Briana, what's your take on it?
Hey, yeah, like Meroë, I didn't do my undergrad in music. So I did theater and French at a small liberal arts college, Davidson College. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was that kid who got out of high school and was like, eh. So honestly, getting to conservatory, I also went to MSM where I met Raehann. I remember being very overwhelmed by how like intense a lot of these like freshman vocalists were. I was like, oh, okay, like, like you gonna sing Tosca tomorrow. Like they were like, and then I'm gonna do this and this. So like, I would say keep an open mind, absorb as much information, both culturally, like things like what Raehann is talking about, going to Europe. Like, if you can, I know financially that can be a burden, but like if you can figure out a way to like immerse yourself in a in a foreign country, highly recommend. And to second a lot of what everyone is saying, networking is huge, and but not just like the people you think can do something for you, but to really get to know everyone in the industry, like whether it's stage crew, whether it's the person in the office who's handling the financials, whether it's like really get to know companies, and even like in your school get to know all the nooks and crannies and the operations, because you never really know where at what point you might kind of need guidance in one aspect or another. I think that's a huge piece that I think a lot of people miss. And you know, just be that singer who's not just kind of like got blinders on, but really be absorbing everything that goes into making it happen.
Briana, that is so important because, you know, somebody might have that key that you need to get in that door, you know, so in that rehearsal room or something. That's very important. Makeda.
Hey, everybody.
Hey there, Makeda. So as we round out this first question, and it's going to be a free-for-all next,
Okay.
what's your take on it?
Mine is slight deviation. I agree with everybody. And the advice that I wish I had taken, maybe even in my junior year, is to take random electives and start, you know, take those classes that make you happy. I wish I had taken like photography 101 or finance 101, you know, because, you know, Corona, and, you know, things that kind of bring you, that bring all aspects of the art form in the industry into like kind of a complete circle. I kind of think of it as, well, as I've had a lot of time to reflect, kind of like a honeycomb type of a model where you have the centric part of you, the art, and then you have all of those little hubs around it that kind of infuse and make you a better artist. So that's kind of how I process my art form now, or my life now. But, you know, not necessarily as a plan B to back up, you know, in case music doesn't work, but everything is just to inform and make you a stronger artist, a stronger individual, a stronger person in the community. You know, you never know what kind of community board you'll wind up on, or church committee, church ministry committee. You're just like, that's not in my purview. But, you know, little small things can help inform the art and inform the community. And so I would say, you know, take those electives, you know, if you have an extra semester and you're like, oh, I only got 2 credits to take 2 more, you know, audit, anything. So that's really my advice for that final hurdle in undergrad.
Thank you.
Can I add one more?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Well, first of all, I want to combine Meroë's and Briana's, because competitions are why you know you have heard my name before, if you have heard my name before. And not just competitions in America, because I never won any of those until I won them in Europe. And I always paid for my competitions or my going to Europe with other competitions. So I went to tiny towns where very few people were going to be competing. I would do well. I wouldn't even win necessarily, but if I got second or third, you could get like $1,000 here, and that's a plane ticket. That's a plane ticket so I can go to Europe and then do a bigger competition. You know, so it doesn't even need to be that you have the money or your parents have the money. If you're resourceful and use your hustle, you can. And in addition, especially when you're in school, there's so many grants and scholarships that are available. Do your homework, get as many scholarships. There's so many scholarships that like nobody even applies to because they're so vague. Do your research. I used to, every morning I would wake up at 6 o'clock, review all the things on Yap Tracker that had been published, and apply to anything that had either legit money or had a panel that could help me. And that's how I chose what competitions I did. So I combined those two, the competitions and also the wait. And then I had another one. Oh, acting, because I loved very much Makeda's contribution of taking classes that you're not required to do. Acting is huge. And so many opera singers are really bad at it, you know?
Yeah.
And so use the resources, like go over to the acting department and just take acting 101 and make yourself competitive. Work on your languages. Even if it's not a requirement, my goodness, please work on your languages. There's so much work in Europe that you have to be able to communicate to work for some of these jobs.
I love that, and want to piggyback one thing off Raehann, because I love so much what you just said. And I just want to add that I am paid for all of my voice lessons in New York from getting an agent in acting and theater. And that is how I paid to get to that next step, which was grad school, which came later. But that's how we pay for these exorbitant lessons and all of these things, by using these other legs of the octopus, if you will. So I love that.
So moving into the audition, so I want to talk, that's the perfect segue into that. So I want anybody can field this question. How did you prepare for the audition? I know a lot of you have had a lot of operatic roles in your bio. What was the preparation involved in that rigor?
I'll go.
Thanks, Meroë.
You need to coach the crap out of your music. Like, it needs to, not to the point where you're bored, because when you're bored with it, it's time to freshen it up and try a new aria. You need to, first of all, try a lot of things and see what works well at 10 a.m. and at 8 p.m. And if you can sing it consistently, I've heard a lot of singers say, oh, why did they pick this piece when I just opened with this piece? That's hard. You offered it, sis. Like, it is your job to be able to sing Sempre Libera after you just sung Jeudi. Like, if you're gonna offer it, you need to be prepared to do it in any order. And it's not fair, because life isn't fair, okay? So, and this industry surely isn't fair. So I always just made sure that my arias were learned and memorized cold, even to the point where I would kind of take it for granted. I still, on the way there, made sure, go over every page. Yep, still know these words. It's muscle memory at this point. And making sure that none of my pages are ripped in my book. Okay, my pianist can read the music clearly. There's no excuse for why I might be tripped up in an audition. And of course, I made sure, like, I feel good by looking good, eating good, and hydrating and sleeping and all of those things. But the most important thing to me that gave me peace of mind was knowing my music cold.
Wow, thank you. So another point, you know, this season of COVID-19 has certainly caused all of us to have to diversify. Could someone maybe speak to how you've had to, you know, basically pivot outside of opera and just some unique ways that you have used your other talents during this time? Go ahead, Christine.
Okay, because I just literally came back from a gig where I was playing with a folk band, bass and banjo and harmonica, and what else was I playing? Auto harps and dulcimers, and all of this speaks to the musicality. And so for me, this whole pivot of COVID, yes, but then also Black Lives Matter, and I'm from Atlanta, so when Ahmaud happened, it like lit a spark under my ass, and I was like, oh, excuse my language, but also I said, what is my purpose here on this planet as an artist? And that is not something that comes and goes with whether or not someone's hiring you or not. That has to do with you knowing why you're here, defining what it is that you want to say, and then saying that. And for me, I started in piano, so the instrumental thing kind of comes easy. I felt like I was just basically mining my brain for music theory for the last month, making money, playing instruments instead of singing opera. So while our industry is reeling, I think it's a very good time to say, why are we here? Why are we doing this? What do we hope to change? That certainly keeps me energized and going and performing. So I definitely made a little pivot, but it's been a fun one. And I think it will all inform when I have to go back and try to sing Bolena one day. It'll be more specific, let's say that.
Makeda, I actually was about to come to you.
Oh, were you?
Because I have a question. I was reading a lot of the bios, but I know you specifically are teaching on the academic level and have had the experience. So could you maybe talk to me about, first of all, let me just go ahead and ask you, are you teaching virtually, Makeda? And just maybe talk to the audience about that. And then I want to ask you another little nuance that kind of goes with teaching and opera career, just in a moment.
Okay. Oh, I'll wait for the follow-up. So yes, I am teaching. Right now I'm an adjunct instructor of voice at Kentucky State University. I previously taught at Oakwood University for 6 years. So that's where I got my my beginning of academic teaching. So this is actually my 10th year. It's hard to believe of teaching in academia. I don't even feel, never mind. I feel like I'm 15 still sometimes. But anyway, yes, this has been a very eye-opening time really, in terms of just connecting with students, learning different temperaments. You know, you get a different vibe when you're in person. You know, some students are, you know, coming from home situations that may not be ideal. Some students are staying in hotels because they have to stay socially distant. You know, it's been a challenge being able to really get them to embrace the newness of this time that we're in. But what I do try to do is really allow them to be themselves when they come to their lessons. I'm not at this point in time, I'm not trying to put extra burdens on them to try to make them feel like, well, the industry is this, the industry is that. It's changing. I mean, we all know the industry is changing at this point. And at this point, you know, I just tell them, look, this is your gift. This is what you can bring today. Let's see what we can do in an hour, and we'll document that. We'll journal it. You know, those are the things that I want you to see is your progress. You know, it's midterms coming up this week. And some of my students were extremely stressed about it. And I said, and all of my students this semester are young women. I say, girls, it's okay. I don't care about your grade. You got an A. If that's what you want to hear, you got an A because you showed up. Okay. And honestly, right now, grades, it's just a really difficult time for people to process and take on so much. And so, you know, I'm like, look, you showed up, you did the work from last week to this week. And that's what I'm asking. And that's all we can hope for. And you progressed. That's the other thing. You know, you got better. You know, you wanted your vowels, you wanted this particular vowel to be different than last week in this register. And it's different. It's better, you know. And so I think I've had to really look at myself as well. You know, this is not the same type of teaching that I have done in person. And I had to really sit with myself and like, check yourself, Makeda, because, you know, even in a lot of the optimism that I have, I'm just like, ooh, I don't know how this is gonna, I don't know, y'all, I don't know. And I was like, you know what, get over yourself and really dig into what these students need from you. And so, you know, that's been, it's coming around. It took a few weeks, but, you know, I'm seeing, you know, some changes in them. I'm really happy to be a part of that that learning process for them.
So Makeda, as the second part of my question, and this is maybe some of your panelists can piggyback on this too. I know that a lot of times there's a discussion. I think someone already intimated this, that when you're teaching, especially if you have an active career as an opera singer, sometimes people think that you're not relevant still because you're teaching. Could you maybe speak to your thoughts on, you know, can you still be a viable opera singer with a career and teach, or do you have to forsake one for the other?
That used to be my belief. That used to be my belief. And it was also because I was younger. You know, I started teaching when I was 25. And that is in my opinion, I feel like that's a really prime time to start, you know, doing things. And I was doing things, but, you know, maybe not on the same spectrum as some of my peers. And I was okay with that. One, because I love voice pedagogy, I love voice science, and I really wanted to find my way in the teaching sphere. So that I was okay with that. But something Patrick Daly said this morning really spoke to me. And I actually just did a presentation about success and what that means to you as an individual. But what he said was, he said, success is singing what I like, when I like, and how I like, or something to that effect. In the first panel discussion this morning, I said, those are the words that I have not been able to verbalize. That's it. And so, you know, I was doing small productions or, chamber concerts, or, you know, connections that I had made maybe while I was in the New Jersey, New York area doing my master's program, holiday concerts all along the East Coast. So, and one of the twins actually said this in the panel before this, when you have these chunks of time off as a teacher, those were the times that I used to do a lot of my performing. It was really difficult to be in Huntsville, Alabama, in a space, you know, where it wasn't very active artistically. And so what I did was I did all of my preparation and auditions in preparation for the times that I knew I would have off. And then most recently during my doctoral studies, that's kind of when things began to turn over a little bit more for me, you know, a little bit on a different professional level. So small concerts with like Opera Delaware, Baltimore Concert Opera, Long Island Concert Orchestra. So like little things that really make me happy. And I am like completely good with that because I'm on stage, I'm singing, I'm using my voice. Like that makes me happy. That is successful to me. And now I'm teaching and taking my voice lessons when I can, you know, so that makes me happy. And, you know, I want to encourage people who feel like there's only two options. They're not two options. There's a whole spectrum of things that are open to you. It's open, it's open, it's open.
I just want to offer three things because, you know, it's so much brilliance on this panel. Well, first of all, I want to start with Raehann. Your video to the afflicted, I was just so amazed with that. And that goes back to the whole thing about being, you know, being open and diverse. I want to thank you for that. And it's just so much talent on here. But I want to know, do any of the other panelists have any thoughts on the whole idea of teaching, or do you teach, or would you teach? Because I know even a lot of well-renowned, you know, world-renowned singers, right now, they vacillate over should they teach. You know, when it's announced on Facebook, a lot of people just resist that because they feel like when it's announced on social media that people are not going to hire them anymore. Well, nobody's hiring anybody right now, but you know what I'm trying to say. That nobody's going to hire them because they don't see the performance aspect. So is there anybody that would like to maybe consider that, you know, is anybody else virtual teaching, even if it's just private lessons?
I actually just started an adjunct professorship at Southwestern Adventist University here in Keene. And I have always sworn that I was not going to teach, or at least not until I was, you know, very, very old and retired and, you know, whatever, just because I thought it was slightly unfair to the students to not be able to be there for them. It was always very frustrating for me as a student when my teacher, you know, just wasn't there and I had something important and they weren't able to be there for me because they were off performing all the time. You know, going occasionally is one thing, but then some teachers are very often gone, so I found that problematic. And then I feel our industry can often be very predatory. You know, at the beginning of COVID, everybody needed to have some kind of income. And so we all kind of turned around and looked at those at the level behind us. And we're like, okay, now you give me your money, you know? And I found that very problematic. And so I just wanted to be sure that I was going into it for the right reason. And also that I was able to have the tools to be able to help these young singers, because we have no shortage of bad teachers in opera. You know, there's no shortage. There are already so many. If it is not your ministry, do not do it. I pray you, do not do it.
Thank
So
you.
that's my thoughts on that.
Thank you. If it's not your ministry, don't do it. That's a word that can cross a many myriad of things. So as we wrap up, we talk about the kind of the actual planning aspect, but we have to also, take care for our mind and our soul and things like that. So I want to know, and maybe Briana, I would like to speak to you about this. How do you protect yourself? You're pursuing these musical things, and sometimes I think, as many of you have kind of alluded to, as much as there's much beauty in music, there can be much angst and turmoil as you pursue this craft. So how do you personally protect yourself when you pursue these endeavors, particularly when you're rejected from like an audition or anything of that nature?
Ooh, I was just thinking as Makeda was talking, the incredible amount of presence that is being demanded of us right now, because we don't have, like, we have no concept of what the future will hold. So, like, it's like you're living, I can't remember where I read this, but they're like, it's almost like Groundhog Day, like you're living the same day. Like you're unable to really like move forward. And like so many of us who are driven, it's all about like, okay, here's my 5-year plan and I'm gonna plan and I'm gonna, and like all of a sudden we're in a space where we can't really plan truly. Like even the things that I have on my calendar, I'm like very distrustful. So I'm trying to use that to focus on, to utilize the great parts about being present, like being wholly present, like in a meditative way, like checking in. I check in with myself, and be still and quiet and assess and embrace wherever I am that day. And a lot of days it's like in a scared, cryy place, like, and just being honest about that. It's true. There's a lot of scary stuff happening in the world right now. Like it's terrifying. And it's okay to just like feel those feelings and be where you are. And I'm so glad to hear that Makeda is the type of teacher who is like embracing that for her students. We need to do that for ourselves as well. Another thing is to just protect your energy and your time. Creating boundaries is really, really, really important, especially in this nebulous like world we're in, right? Make sure, for me, something that helps is like scheduling time to work out. Like I actually would say like of the 7 deadly sins, like sloth is probably my worst one. Like I love to sleep. I love to relax and sit, So like to me, it's like making sure I move my body every day, whether it's like a good long walk with my dog or like, doing like an online gym class, like, and keeping those times. So I say all this to say like identifying times for yourself that you like protect. So like when I get bombarded with questions or things, people want me to hop on a Zoom meeting or do something, and I'm like, nope, like from here to here, it is not available and there's no budging. And I would say to do that, just like even when we're in person, if you're in an audition, if you're in a rehearsal, protecting your energy and what you need. Like, don't engage with people that are around you if it's not serving you. Like if you need to have a minute, take that minute. So I would just say protect your energy 100%, just like in every way that manifests.
The reason I asked that question about the whole idea of protecting yourself, because even now, as you just mentioned, you have to jump on a Zoom call. People think you're supposed to do a virtual concert and all this stuff. You have to put all this energy out, but then you don't necessarily have the opportunity to put it in. So I'm thankful that you spoke to that. Now, Meroë and Christine, you know, you both have a connection. I mean, I've definitely have interacted with you all a couple of times. So, Meroë, I want to talk to you because many of you have experienced it, because I know I have. You know, a lot of times you leave the small town and you go to the big city and you pursue these endeavors. So, Meroë, when you came back home, you had a wonderful occasion when you made your debut with the Prince George's Philharmonic. So I want to know, what was that like, you know, you being away and then coming home? It's like sometimes it's like a prophet without honor, you a prophet without honor in your own hometown. So I want to know, what was it like you going away, having all these accolades, but then to come home and be received?
It was beautiful because I got to give back to the people who supported me. And I finally got to answer the question, when you gonna sing here? That's nice that you're going to Italy. That's nice that you're going to Fort Worth. But when you gonna sing here? I'm like, well, call WNO and complain. Write a letter. So it was beautiful. And it was in the county so I didn't go to Bowie High School, but I went to Suitland, which is like in the same community. And it was me coming back to my family, essentially, and my loved ones, and giving them, you know, a thank you for all the support and the prayers that they've given to me. It was wonderful. So I still live in New Jersey, but going home and doing gigs is always wonderful because I have a built-in support system. When I go other places, I sometimes don't know anyone in the audience, which is okay, but there's nothing like having blood relatives in the audience and their boyfriends, okay? it's just such a wonderful feeling when you run out of comp tickets and then people are still like, that's okay, I'll buy my ticket. And they want to pay to support you and bring their kids, because you know, like my cousin brought his son who's 5, and afterwards he's, can I go take a picture with the opera singer? It's like, that's your family. But yes, it was just a beautiful opportunity to share. And some of the people would have never seen, you know, heard an orchestra, or at least maybe they would have, but they hadn't as of yet. And it was just beautiful to introduce my love to my loved ones, because my close family, yes, they follow me around and support, but not everyone has that chance. So it's always beautiful to come back home and give back to your loved ones.
Thank you. Hey, Christine, I think the first time I met you, I want to say, was at Wolf Trap when Denise
right.
did Studio 410.
That's right. That's right.
So you got to work, or probably still in close contact with one of the world's greatest opera singers.
Yes.
Could you maybe talk a little bit about that, and maybe like the whole Studio 410 and how that dynamic works when you all are in the same studio with a great opera singer such as Ms. Graves?
Well, I just feel very fortunate because the way that we met was me going and having a few voice lessons with her, and then her graciously saying, come to Peabody and work with me. To which I quit my job in New York and moved to Baltimore the next week. And that was the end of that. So she absolutely took me under her wing and said, stop doing everything you're doing and let's focus on what we need to focus on to get you where you need to be. And I would not be where I was it not for Denise Graves and all of the advice that she gave me along the way, especially in terms of what you had mentioned earlier, and some of these wonderful panelists talked about protecting our energies along this path. And no matter what we face, you know, making sure that you save enough time for yourself and always speak to yourself kindly. That was one of the most important things she ever told me. It doesn't matter what people say about you or what they say, how you speak to yourself will carry you through this life. And especially for us Black women who are, you know, dealing with things in the world and facing different things in our own country, let alone the world, it's very important to be reminded of that. And when I met you at Wolf Trap, yes, we were all in the same studio. 410 is the name of the number of the room that she works in, which is beautifully decorated with her La Scala debut poster and words on the wall like breathe and relax and be kind. And so all of those things got absorbed through us, and hopefully, because I believe that music is the only thing that can transmute all of this sorrow and suffering into joy. I'm hoping that all of those things that we all got through Denise Graves can let us give the world something beautiful and let us uplift each other.
Thank you for adding that personal touch. Now, as we basically wind down and move towards the end of the panel, first of all, I want to thank you all so much. I do want to field a question here. There's a question, and oh my goodness, this almost it relates to me, but I'm not singing anything. And I'll let anybody take it. It says, in terms of young artist programs, are any of you familiar with programs that assist artists that are not so young, say ages 28 and up?
I mean, I think most, oh, sorry, go ahead, Makeda.
Oh, okay. I would say stock Yap Tracker right now and use the filter section. There's a lot of filters, which I use, and you'll be surprised that there are quite, I don't know what they are specifically, but there are right now some opera companies that are partnering with each other that have no age limit listed right now. And I would say, go ahead, get your account. It might even be discounted right now. They might be running that promotion. But if you have the $50 or $55 for the year, I still think, regardless of many things that are happening, that it's a safe investment to use Yap Tracker, use that filtering system, and then see what types of opportunities come up for that. I do know also that probably when the world opens again fully, the American Institute of Musical Studies in Graz has no age limit. They have the fantastic Ames Orchestra, the Meistersinger competition for singers who are, moderately established, but if you sound good and if you are singing well, more than likely you're eligible for that particular opportunity within the program itself. They have multiple levels you can choose from, like the studio artist program, which focuses on like art song and solo vocal rep. And then they have the opera artist program, which is a bit more extensive. And then based on a teacher's recommendation, you can be entered into that competition. They have managers and agents that come to pretty much all of the major concerts. And you have the opportunity to sing for them. So I think the Ames program is actually a fantastic program if you're looking for something that is highly respected, but somewhere where you can still, not feel like you are competing against everybody, where you can really go to be enriched, and you'll still have that nice boost in your artistic endeavors. So those are my 2 suggestions.
Thank you. I want to move to something else we've kind of touched on. I think one of the biggest shocks of this was when Columbia Artists Management closed. I never thought I would see the day that Columbia Artists Management, I mean, that has to be the most powerful management company in classical music. So now I want to talk to you all about your specific management, because I think somebody touched on in one of the other panels. So basically, and I always tell, Makeda has known me long enough where I always say you are your own PR, especially with social media. So could you I'll ask, how do you all basically keep yourself relevant with social media and PR, particularly if you're not under management?
I guess, well, it's interesting because I don't think managers some management companies partner with like PR companies. Right, like I know. Yeah. Like your manager's not gonna like post on Facebook for you. No. Yeah. I mean, yeah, for me, I didn't get a manager until much later. I feel like I had been singing and hustling for a long time before I even got a manager. So I was like used to doing a lot of that stuff for myself. So that's like not everybody's the same, like some people, they graduate, they get a manager the next day and like they've never done, like it's true though, like it can be so varied. and you meet these artists and they're like, I don't know how to do anything. I never look at contracts. I never do it, you know, like, and I'm like, I like, even with my manager now, like, he loves me. I love you, Aaron. But like, I'm always like on him, like, can I see it? Can I see the thing? Cause like, I'm so used to being very hands-on. Like for me, it was like the difficulty was actually letting some of that go, and like handing in the process of like, as I'm getting to the point where I'm noticing it's harder to manage so many things, like delegating and actually like allowing others to do things for me. So I will say that's the perspective that I'm coming from, but that's also important, right? Because, right, protect your energy and like, don't make yourself insane. Like be knowledgeable, understand the business, but also like know when it's time. Like you'll know when it's time that you need to start delegating a few things.
And the reason I brought that up, because not even beyond music or opera, you know, I find that a lot of times when I talk to people, as you just alluded to, you know, basically what I have experienced, a lot of people don't even know the basic things that I have taken for granted. Like my parents, you know, when I was coming up, you balance your checkbook, you do all of these other things. But then when it comes down to, yes, we make him, you know, I'm an organist, and so I play the organ or whatever. But when it comes to the business acumen, I think that especially the university and the conservatory setting, if you don't really avail yourself to those courses, you do go lacking in that area. So thank you. So as we kind of come up to the end of the panel, the 4 o'clock hour just about, I want to take a moment to go around the whole panel and ask you all, and I may kind of broaden this because the question that I have is, it says, what is your advice for those interested in careers in opera performance? Now, I'm going to add a caveat to this because, you know, COVID-19 has people thinking in all kinds of sorts of direction. As we already talked about, we've had to pivot, we have to diversify, we have to do all these other things that don't necessarily involve us, you know, performing per se. So just in the heels of COVID-19 in this season that we're in, even beyond that, but we're going to get out of this. I'm praying that we're going to get out of this. But I'm going to start with Christine. What would you advise someone pursuing this career right now?
I think that wanting to be an opera singer is certainly some sort of calling that happens in between the airspace. No one just says, oh, I want to do that. There's some kind of sensation that you get, or there's someone that kind of instills in you that you are capable of doing this grand thing. So in the process of having the responsibility of choosing that grand thing, we also have that responsibility to, in taking care of ourselves, figure out what our purpose is here on this earth as artists. And I would encourage people during all of this downtime to say, what can I give? What do I need to say? What kind of roles do I want to sing that will sufficiently carry the message that I want to bring to the world, me, my unique self? And just do it. No's mean nothing. Don't believe anyone that tells you no. You know yourself best, and you know, get to know your own voice, get to know, sing alone, get to know where your strengths are and where your weaknesses are. Don't always rely on your team, which will be probably ever evolving, or it has been in my case, team of coaches and agents and managers in this. It's like, we can't always rely on everyone to look out for us. So we have to give ourselves the deliberate rest and restoration necessary to process the world, decide what we want to say. And if you want to do it through opera, just do it. Do it.
Thank you. Raehann?
So in prepping for this conversation, I got a little eager and I took like 3 pages of notes. So I'm just going to hit you with my answer to this last question, which is just bullet points. It's not going to be very long, but there's so much within each one. And if you have any questions about what any of them mean, like, just hit me up on Instagram. Okay. So obviously, number one is it's all about your technique, right? You want to have a team. You want to have a voice teacher that you trust. You need to have coaches that you trust. You get so much input in this career. You need a team of 5 people maximum that you're listening to. Okay. You need to work on your languages. you cannot make it on a high level if you cannot pronounce things authentically, right? That's not true. There are lots of exceptions. Learn how to learn music. This is so essential because as you go, you're going to get so many roles thrown at you. If you can't learn it in time, you're not going to get offered a job again. So to build a career, you need to learn how to learn music quickly, right? I already mentioned acting, key tool. You need to learn how to play the game. You should look at your artistry as a product. It's not you. If somebody gives you a critique, you're like, oh, okay, so that aspect of the product needs work. So then you don't take it as personally. You're like, oh, okay, yes, that I can do, right? That also helps you with your marketing. It's not you putting yourself on the line every time. It's you're just selling the product, right? Also making those connections with industry leaders that we talked about. Look for resources. Look for connections. Go where you are in demand. I wasn't working in this country on the level that I wanted to work, so I left. And there I was appreciated. Go where you are appreciated. Find a need and fill it. There's so many opportunities of where you can perform. There are museums that are doing exhibitions on certain topics. Go and ask them if you can put on a recital based on that. They were talking in the last panel about church jobs, also a fantastic way to have income. Schools always need input. Conferences, I had a friend in Detroit that literally she made her input by just singing for conferences, and she was making like $3,000 per thing, just like, you know, they don't know anything, but they just want to hear O mio bambino caro, and it was fine. Be creative. Don't adhere to the wall. Don't let the walls box you in. Think out of the box. Try everything. Honestly, that's my biggest advice, is try everything. You asked how to plan a career. I literally would email a lot of people. I would go where I heard on Facebook that some VIP person was going to be. I would be like, I want to meet that person. I would go there. I just stalked people, I'll be honest. Try everything. You don't know which avenue is going to work. Just try it all and be proactive. Be kind, like Briana was talking about. You don't know who. We went to school with people who are now artistic directors, right? You didn't know that back then that was going to happen, but here we are. Now they can give you jobs. Be authentic.
I'm gonna have to cut in because we're kind of right at 4 o'clock.
Okay, I'm done.
But it was great. Thank you. Meroë, can I hear from you?
Okay, I just want to add on top of everything that was also said, because it was all gems.
It was.
Please look at yourself and remind yourself that you are a human first. You're a man or woman first. And like Raehann said, your voice is a talent. You know, it is a business, but you still have worth and value outside of what you can sing for someone. Please remember that. You need to work on finding your value outside of singing, because guess what? All of us have had to figure that out in some way, shape, or form during this pandemic, when those jobs that we had got snatched, okay? Okay, please find something else that you can do. I'm very grateful that I have a degree in sales and marketing. I have diversified my income with little gigs that had to do with music, little gigs that didn't have anything to do with music. I call those my side hustles. You know, just little jobs here and there that help you stay afloat. Like, please, you are more than just a singer, musician, organist, director, whatever the case may be. You have value as a human, and please just include that in your daily routine.
Unless someone feels led to add any more. Oh my God, Raehann, you definitely.
I'm gonna say one quick thing.
Makeda, go ahead, real quick.
I'm just gonna say, use your failures to fuel you. Use the failures to fuel you. So that's one thing. And then remove any gatekeepers in your life because they will hold you back. Get rid of those people. Get rid of the gatekeepers and stay away from them. Okay? Don't listen to them. That's it.
Well, you all, I have. Oh, Briana, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, don't be afraid to take risks and pick like one thing a day that you're gonna push yourself to do that maybe you were afraid of. I really think that every, whether when we're auditioning again, like be like, you know what, today I'm really gonna go for this, or I'm gonna do this physical move. Pick something to like risk because that's part of what makes this art form exciting. So don't forget to like, do your emotional work and yeah, just go out there and be you, be the youest you can be. We need you.
Thank you all so much. Again, I'm Patrick D. McCoy, and you've been listening to this panel on Careers in Opera. I want to thank Christine Lyons, Meroë Adeeb, Briana Hunter, Makeda Hampton, Raehann Bryce-Davis. And is that everybody? Because I see all these new faces on here, so I got thrown off on the screen. Did I get everybody in your recognition? Thank you all so much. And again, thank you, Renee. And just this whole vision of yours has been wonderful. Again, I'm Patrick D. McCoy, and thank you all so much for joining us for this panel today.
Thank y'all so much.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you.
It was such a pleasure. I mean, Patrick, you held it down, okay? You held it down.
Thank you.
It was so great. It was so great. I love all the information that I learned. I loved engaging with these such accomplished opera singers. I mean, back to back accomplishments. It was so great. And I love this background that you got going. It looks phenomenal.
You see, I got the screen up and everything.
Yes. It looks so good. Yes, I love it. I love it all. I love it.
So I should move so you all can get the full.
Yes, give us all these people. Yes, come on with the knowledge. Oh my gosh, these are gems. Oh wow, this is.
If you all ever get a chance, there's a store in Maryland called Second Story Books, and they sell all these vintage records. I mean, virtually anybody you can find. Joan Sutherland, all of the greats in there. So yeah.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much for joining us.
All right, well, I'm gonna exit out of here.